Marcus handed in his company laptop, said goodbye to his colleagues for the last time, and boarded a one-way flight out of Dubai on a Thursday morning. He wasn't alone. That same week, 3 other senior managers from his firm did exactly the same thing. No farewell party. No LinkedIn post celebrating the next chapter. Just gone. And the reason you haven't heard about it is because people like Marcus are contractually forbidden from telling you the truth. This is the story Dubai's tourism board doesn't want trending. The reality behind the glittering skyline, the influencer reels shot at rooftop infinity pools, and the government press releases celebrating record investment. Because while those headlines keep rolling, something deeply alarming is happening beneath the surface of this city, and the numbers are finally impossible to hide. In 2024 alone, the UAE Federal Competitiveness and Statistics Center recorded 127,000 resident visa cancellations that significantly outpaced new approvals. 127,000 people. That's not a migration blip. That's not people upgrading to better opportunities. That is a structured, accelerating departure of the very population that built Dubai into what it is today. And the question nobody in power wants to answer is a simple one. Why are they really leaving? To understand the scale of what's unfolding right now, you need to appreciate what Dubai actually was at its peak. In 2019, the expatriate population hit 3.5 million people. Think about that figure for a moment. Expatriates represented roughly 85% of Dubai's entire population. This wasn't just a city that welcomed foreigners. It was a city that functionally could not exist without them. Citizens were the minority in their own country, and that arrangement worked because both sides were getting something out of the deal. Expats got tax-free salaries, world-class infrastructure, and a lifestyle that their home country salaries could never have funded. Dubai got the human capital, the spending power, the international credibility, and the economic engine it needed to transform from a desert trading post into a global metropolis in under 5 decades. That deal is now broken. And the breaking point didn't happen overnight. It happened layer by layer, cost by cost, broken promise by broken promise, until one morning people like Marcus woke up and realized the math simply didn't work anymore. Let's start where the pain is most immediate, because for most families, this story begins at home. Specifically, it begins with the moment they open their lease renewal notice and feel their stomach drop. Dubai's rental market has gone through a transformation over the last 2 years that can only be described as predatory. Average rental increases of 35 to 40% year over year in prime areas. Not in one exceptional postcode. Across the board, a 2-bedroom apartment in Dubai Marina that cost 80,000 dirhams a year in 2021 is now being listed at 130,000 dirhams or more. That's the difference between roughly 22,000 and 35,000 US dollars annually, just to keep a roof over your family's head. And that's before you've paid for school fees, groceries, utilities, or the car you need because public transit still doesn't reach half the residential areas people actually live in. What accelerated this catastrophe was a quiet but devastating amendment to Dubai's rental laws that effectively stripped away the caps that once limited how much a landlord could raise your rent each year. With those protections gone, landlords now hold all the cards. They can demand whatever they want upon renewal, and your only choices are to pay it or leave. One British executive who spent 15 years building his career in Dubai, someone who survived the 2008 financial crisis here, who absorbed the VAT introduction in 2018, who pushed through the pandemic without relocating, told me privately that when his landlord hit him with a 45% increase on top of the 30% from the year before, something broke. Not just financially, something broke in his belief in what Dubai had promised him. 15 years. Gone in the time it took to read a renewal notice. But here's where it gets worse, because the housing crisis is only the first layer. Stack education costs on top, and you begin to understand why entire families are disappearing from this city. Dubai's international schools, institutions that parents chose specifically because they were supposed to deliver world-class education, have increased their fees by between 15 and 25% every single year since 2022. These aren't small numbers when you're already spending upwards of 60,000 to 80,000 dirhams per child annually. The Knowledge and Human Development Authority approved these increases. Each one individually might appear justifiable on paper, but nobody approving those increases was apparently looking at the compound effect on a family already paying 130,000 dirhams in rent. The British School of Dubai and multiple GEMS institutions are now reporting declining enrolment for the first time in their histories. Enrolment drops of 23% have been recorded across major international schools, and the pattern administrators are seeing behind closed doors is heartbreaking. Families aren't just choosing cheaper schools, they're fragmenting. One parent stays in Dubai as the sole income earner, while children and the other parent relocate to a home country where schooling is affordable or even free. Dubai spent years marketing itself as a place where professionals could transplant their entire lives, their families, their futures, their ambitions. What it's becoming instead is a revolving door for single contract workers sending money home, which is precisely what the Gulf employment model looked like before Dubai decided to be different. And the corporates noticed before the families did. The office towers are still there, the logos are still on the glass. But step inside some of those regional headquarters and what you find is a skeleton operation maintaining the appearance of presence, while the actual work, the actual decision-making, the actual headcount has been relocated. Major consulting firms, including some of the biggest names in global professional services, have been quietly moving operations to Riyadh. One senior manager at a Big Four firm, speaking in a way that made very clear he could not be named, told me that nearly 40% of his firm's regional operations had shifted to Saudi Arabia over 18 months. Not because Saudi Arabia is perfect, because the cost-benefit calculation in Dubai stopped making sense. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 initiative represents something Dubai didn't take seriously until recently. A genuine, well-funded, deeply committed competitor. The Saudis aren't just talking about economic transformation, they're executing it, and they're doing it by offering the kinds of incentives Dubai used to offer 10 years ago. Housing allowances, education subsidies, tax structures designed to attract rather than extract. The talent pool that once flowed automatically into Dubai because it was the only sophisticated option in the region now has somewhere else to go. And it's going there. Singapore and Hong Kong are doing something similar from the other direction. Both cities have spent the post-pandemic years quietly reclaiming their reputations as the dominant business hubs for anyone operating across Asia and the Middle East simultaneously. They offer the infrastructure, they offer the connectivity, they offer regulatory environments that are predictable and transparent. And critically, they process visas in weeks rather than what has become, in Dubai, a process measured in months and sometimes years. Which brings us to what might be the single most damaging development for Dubai's long-term credibility. The Golden Visa Program. When it launched, this was the ultimate signal that Dubai was serious about retaining talent. Long-term residency, security for investors, a pathway for skilled professionals to stop living renewal to renewal and actually plant roots. The reality, as thousands of applicants have discovered, is a bureaucratic maze that seems deliberately designed to frustrate rather than welcome. Processing times have stretched to absurd lengths. Minimum investment thresholds keep climbing. Documentation requirements shift without notice. One financial services professional who spent 8 years in Dubai before relocating to Singapore told me he spent 15 months navigating the specialized talent golden visa process. 15 months of additional document requests, changing criteria, and radio silence. When his employer offered a position in Singapore, he accepted the same day. His Singapore employment pass arrived in 3 weeks. 3 weeks versus 15 months. That is the competitive reality Dubai is currently losing. The deeper issue with the visa chaos is what it does to families trying to stay together. Minimum salary thresholds for sponsoring a spouse or children have been raised to levels that effectively exclude middle-income earners. People who have lived in Dubai for a decade, who have contributed enormous amounts to this economy, are now being told they don't earn enough to keep their family with them. Whether that's intentional policy or catastrophic bureaucratic failure almost doesn't matter at this point. The result is the same. People leave. So why is this all happening now? Why is this particular moment the breaking point after decades of the model working? Several forces converge simultaneously, and the timing couldn't have been more damaging. Gulf states across the board are navigating the transition away from oil dependence, and that search for new revenue streams has produced a creeping expansion of fees, charges, and costs that didn't exist when most of these expats made their decision to move here. The original bargain, no income tax, low cost of living, high quality of life, has been quietly renegotiated without anyone explicitly announcing it. And the people who signed up for the original terms are understandably furious. Remote work demolished one of Dubai's most powerful competitive advantages. The city's geography, sitting at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa, was compelling when your company needed you physically present in a regional hub. When your company realized it didn't actually need you in any specific city, Dubai's case for its premium cost structure collapsed. Businesses are now actively questioning why they're paying Dubai rents for offices when their talent is productive from anywhere. Currency dynamics have made this worse in ways that rarely get discussed. The dirham is pegged to the US dollar, which means as the dollar has strengthened against the British pound, the euro, and multiple Asian currencies, Dubai has become dramatically more expensive in real terms for anyone earning or saving in those currencies. A British professional who came here 10 years ago because the purchasing power made the move worthwhile is now effectively paying a significant currency premium on top of already inflated local prices. And underneath all of this, infrastructure that was designed for a city growing toward a different future is groaning under the weight of the present. Traffic congestion in major corridors has become a daily endurance test. Utility reliability has dipped in some areas. The quality of life premium that once made Dubai's cost structure justifiable is visibly eroding. What's happening on social media and in expat communities tells you everything official channels won't. LinkedIn has quietly transformed into a departure board. Posts celebrating someone's last day in Dubai now outnumber posts celebrating arrivals. Expat Facebook groups that spent years sharing restaurant recommendations and school comparisons have become repatriation support networks. Reddit threads where people document their reasons for leaving are running to thousands of comments, many from long-term residents describing a very specific emotion. Not just disappointment, betrayal. These were people who believed in what Dubai said it was, who turned down opportunities elsewhere to stay, who invested emotionally and financially in a city they thought had made them a durable promise. The sense that the rules were changed after they were already committed is not a fringe view. It is the dominant experience being expressed by people who are leaving, and yet you won't read most of this in mainstream coverage of Dubai. Employment contracts with confidentiality clauses prevent departing professionals from speaking publicly. Corporate communications policies instruct staff not to comment on relocation decisions. And there is persistent, credible reporting from journalists that stories about population decline and expatriate departure are being softened or rejected by editors operating under pressure to protect the narrative. The gap between what is being experienced on the ground and what is being reported internationally is not accidental. It is managed, and it creates a genuinely dangerous situation where new arrivals keep coming based on promises that no longer reflect the reality they will encounter. The economic consequences of what's already happened are serious. Consumer spending is contracting. Retail and hospitality sectors built on the assumption of a large, high-spending expatriate population are already feeling the strain. Real estate is sitting on an existential risk, given that approximately 70% of properties are owned by expatriates. A sustained decline in population doesn't just soften prices. It can trigger a cascading correction that wipes out the net worth that hundreds of thousands of people have built here. Government revenue projections and infrastructure commitments, many of them tied to continued population growth assumptions, are increasingly disconnected from the trajectory that the data actually shows. There are conversations happening behind closed doors about what solutions might look like. Rent control legislation, corporate tax relief for strategic sectors, streamlined visa pathways for priority industries, infrastructure acceleration. None of these are without complications, and all of them require time to implement in a situation where the window for course correction is shortening with every flight that leaves with someone who isn't coming back. Dubai built something genuinely remarkable, a city that had no logical reason to exist at the scale it does, summoned out of desert and ambition and a willingness to make an offer the world couldn't refuse. The tragedy of this moment is that the city's success planted the seeds of exactly this crisis. Rising prosperity made rising costs seem manageable. Rising costs made the original promise impossible to keep. And somewhere in that transition, the people who made it all possible stopped being partners in the project and started being revenue sources to extract from. Marcus is in London now. He's adjusted. He's fine. But he'll tell you that leaving felt like a divorce from something he'd believed in for over a decade, and he won't be the last person to describe it that way. If you're living this right now, if you're staring at a lease renewal or a school fee invoice or a visa rejection, and wondering how it came to this, your experience is real and it matters. Drop it in the comments, because the truth about what's happening in Dubai right now isn't going to come from government press releases or tourism board campaigns. It's going to come from the people who were there. Hit subscribe if you want coverage that doesn't sanitize the Gulf for the sake of access. Because this story is far from over.